Okay, this is the nervous system, part one of, I think there are 8 parts. They might expand beyond that. So this first part is just talking about the divisions of the nervous system and, of course, obviously the function. So nervous system is the master controlling and communicating system of the body. It controls everything. And it really consists of 3 parts that you can kind of think of. Some sort of sensory input that we need sensory input from inside and outside the body. Think of it this way. You need to know that it's hot outside, but you also need to know what the temperature is inside your body. Some sort of integration, kind of think of that as that, infamous black box, where interpretation of that sensory input, and then some sort of response. And that response will go to what are called effectors. So if we think about this function, first of all, this should sound somewhat familiar. It should sound a lot like what we were talking about with a homeostatic control mechanism. All right, so let's just get to the organization of the nervous system. So we have the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and the spinal cord. And this is that black box. This is where that integration comes into play. And then we have the peripheral nervous system, the PNS, paired spinal and cranial nerves. And this is going to be carrying messages to and from that CNS. So this peripheral, then, we will subdivide, right, into this and into this. So the 2 main divisions are going to be the sensory and the motor, or the afferent and efferent. Little side note, the correct way to pronounce this is afferent and efferent. Many instructors will just say afferent and efferent to avoid any type of confusion. All right, so we have the sensory or the afferent division. It carries impulses from the skin, skeletal muscles, and joints to the brain. That is our sensory afferent fibers. Visceral afferent fibers will transmit impulses from visceral organs to the brain. So the sensory has these 2 components. We're going to come back to this later to talk about referred pain. Motor transmits impulses from the CNS to the effector organs. This we're going to subdivide based on what those effector organs are. So this motor division, we know that we have 2 major parts. And we should kind of already know this because we know that we have voluntary control over skeletal muscle and involuntary over everything else. So the somatic nervous system is our voluntary or conscious control of skeletal muscles. And then we have the ANS, our autonomic nervous system. And that's going to hit smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and glands. So don't forget the glands part. Now, think of it this way. We're going to have autonomic nervous system that will hit smooth muscle to tell it to contract, and another to tell it to relax. So we have 2 antagonistic divisions of the ANS, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And really what we're going to be doing for the rest of the semester is going over all of these different organizations of this nervous system. So really all we're going to be doing in this chapter is just talking about the histology and basic aspects of action potentials. So we are going to cover action potentials here. We've already covered them in the muscle. They are the same. I'm not talking about an end plate potential. The only difference is now we're just adding another layer to it. We're going to be quantifying certain things. So we still have depolarization and repolarization. It's still sodium and potassium. It is exactly the same. I'm just adding a little bit more information. And that's it for part 1.